Hey everyone, I'm David Aragona, and this is the culmination of the 2021 TimeformUS Road to the Derby series, and we are handicapping the Kentucky Derby, the races that we've been talking about leading up to this. All the prep races, they are completed now, and the Derby field is set. 20 runners signed on to compete on Saturday at Churchill Downs, race 12 on a 14-race card. Let's start by throwing up the field for this race, and it's a really competitive affair. We've got a 2-1 morning line favorite in the number 14 Essential Quality, but don't let that fool you. This is a really well-matched field. No real standout among this field from a speed figure standpoint. All of the horses have run very similar numbers throughout the spring prep season. And while Essential Quality is undefeated and comes in as the most accomplished of these horses, he doesn't have a major ability edge over this field. So we're going to see how he stacks up against the rest in the toughest race of his career. And the same goes for all of the other horses that are signed on against him. 20 horses that'll be stampeding across the stands for the first time. And let's take a look at the TimeformUS pace projector to see how they're going to sort themselves out. And you see the number 15, Rock Your World, the Santa Anita Derby winner, shown on the lead in a fast-paced situation. No surprise about that fast-paced characterization, given how many horses are signed on in this race. The Kentucky Derby lately almost always features a fast pace. So Rock Your World could be in front of this race if he employs the same tactics that he did last time in the Santa Anita Derby. But the number 8, Medina Spirit, who's shown second, also has plenty of tactical speed, as does the number 10, Midnight Bourbon, the number 17, Highly Motivated, and the number 19, Soup and Sandwich, who are all shown right behind him. So those 5 runners will be jockeying for position on the front end for supremacy in the early going, and then we'll see how quickly they have to go up front and how things set up for the closers in this race. You see Essential Quality shown about mid-pack there, about 8th or 9th on the pace projector, and also only 13 chiclets that you see. That's because there are 7 horses that are termed deep closers in this race, so they're not even on the screen here because the Derby does get really strung out as they come by the stands for the first time. So we're likely to have a fast pace in this Kentucky Derby. Now let's dive into those main contenders, and we'll take them beginning in morning line order with the 2-1 morning line favorite, the number 14, Essential Quality, coming in as last year's 2-year-old champion. He's undefeated for Brad Cox, a deserving favorite in this race. But I think the question you have to answer for yourself is, how low do you want to go on a horse that really hasn't run that much faster than his competition coming into this race? He did win his last prep race. Let's take a look at that when he took down the Grade 2 Bluegrass at Keeneland. He got the job done here, going the 1.125 distance for the first time. He's going to have to stretch out an extra furlong, but he did beat his main rival in this race, Highly Motivated. They put on a good show to the wire here. Essential Quality really met his match in that horse until the final 16th when he asserted his supremacy over that Shad Brown runner. But Essential Quality, to me, he wasn't really finishing like a horse that I think is going to love the extra distance. He did run a fast final fraction in this race, faster than all the other preps, but that was really due to the fact that the pace of this Bluegrass was pretty moderate. That's why they came home so slowly compared to some other races, so I'm not putting that much stock in the come-home time. He just got a 1:17 TimeformUS speed figure, which is solid enough, but like I said, other preps went a little bit faster, so he really doesn't have any kind of speed figure advantage. Brad Cox does great work with these horses coming off wins, especially in Grade 1 races. You can look those numbers up in Formulator. They are excellent for the Brad Cox barn. So I think Essential Quality makes a lot of sense, and I'll definitely use him. He's got the kind of versatile running style that's always dangerous in this race. Just from a value standpoint, I prefer some others that are better bets in this Kentucky Derby. Moving on to the second choice on the morning line, that is Rock Your World, the number 15. He's pegged at 5-1 on Mike Battaglia's morning line. He was the horse that's shown on the lead in the pace projector, and he used front-running tactics to win the Santa Anita Derby last time. Let's take a look at that victory. He was pretty visually impressive winning this race. He took no prisoners on the front end, outran his main rival Medina Spirit to the lead, and just kept going in the stretch, drawing away from this field with big strides coming through the lane. Remember, this was his first ever start on the dirt, and he really took to that surface like it's been his preferred surface all along. He made his first couple career starts on the turf, but he really moved up his game to a new level, getting on the dirt for the first time in his last start. He's got to stretch out to the 1.25 miles, as all of these horses do, but given the way he finished last time, after setting some taxing fractions, don't think the distance is going to be a real problem for him. He just has to overcome that inexperience hurdle because he's only made those 3 career starts, just that one start on the dirt. So he's got to break sharply in this race, get to the front end again, and if not, he could have to deal with the dirt kickback for the first time, which sometimes can be tough for these horses that have done a lot of their prior work on the turf. I think he's got the ability to win this race. That 1:23 TimeformUS speed figure that he got last last time out in the Santa Anita Derby. That is the fastest of any of the preps that we've seen among the horses that are running in this Derby. So he definitely is good enough to win. It's just a matter of whether he's ready to deliver that top performance on the first Saturday in May. Another horse coming out of a prep race win is the winner of the Florida Derby. That is Known Agenda, who's drawn the rail in this race. He's pegged as a third choice, 6-1 on the morning line. Let's take a look at his last down victory in that Florida Derby. And it seems like this Todd Pletcher trainee has really come to hand since they put the blinkers on two-back. He was really visually impressive winning that allowance race with the blinkers, and he came right back in the Florida Derby last time to again win this race decisively with those blinkers on. You see he's running by that gray horse on the inside, Soup and Sandwich. He's also back in this race. Soup and Sandwich is another horse kind of like Rock Your World, who's pretty inexperienced coming in here, so he still has some greenness to work out. But Known Agenda, the winner of this race, he's going to have no problem with the distance. This horse has always given the impression that 1.25 miles and perhaps even beyond that should be right up his alley, and he finished so strongly at the end of those last 2 mile and 1/8 races at Gulfstream Park. The problem is he only got a 1:11 Timeform US speed figure for that Florida Derby victory, and I talked about Essential Quality's 1:17 not being any kind of standout number. Well, a 1:11 is a bit shy of that, so he's going to have to run the best race of his career to win here. He's also drawn the rail post position, which is generally not ideal in the Derby. I don't think it's going to matter as much this year, but keep in mind, Known Agenda is a horse that sometimes has reacted badly to kickback in his prior races. He's not always racing in the bridle, so with a stampede of horses crossing over ahead of him, I wonder if he'll be a bit more negatively affected by that rail post than some others that could have drawn down inside there. So I'm a little bit against Known Agenda here, even though I think he's going to handle the distance. Another horse that won a prep race on a different circuit is the number 9, Hot Rod Charlie. He was the winner of the Grade 2 Louisiana Derby, and he's the one that really has the fewest stamina questions to answer because he won going 1 mile and 3/16, farther than any of the other prep races when he took down that Louisiana Derby last time. And he used a different running style that day, used a lot more aggressively to stalk the pace and actually take over on the backstretch of that race a long way out. And he just kept grinding away, turning back multiple challenges to win that race by a couple of lengths. That 1:15 Timeform US speed figure, not one of the fastest that we've seen coming into this race, but he's been steadily improving in all of his races, now making his 8th career start in the Kentucky Derby. He's got plenty of seasoning under his belt, and he's been good going all the way back to last year when he was a no-fluke second to Essential Quality in that Breeders' Cup Juvenile. There's an argument that he ran just as well as the winner that day, making an early move to take over in that fast-paced situation, and he's run well stepping forward in both starts since then as a 3-year-old. Seems like he's training well coming into this Derby, and I just think he makes a lot of sense. He's the 4th choice on the morning line at 8-1. We'll see what price he ultimately goes off at, but I think Hot Rod Charlie is just a very logical contender in this Kentucky Derby. Another horse that's coming out of a prep race that we already watched is the number 17, Highly Motivated. I talked about him in that battle last time in the Bluegrass with Essential Quality, and he was just second best that day. Highly Motivated, got a great trip in there, setting a pretty moderate pace. That was really the ideal circumstance for him to try out that 2-turn 1.8 mile distance for the first time, and he almost got it done. Essential Quality was just a little better than him in the late stages. I'm not sure that Highly Motivated really wants the 1.25 mile distance. He's buying to Mischief, who is a versatile sire, but on the dam side, his damn strong incentive was really just a miler, a turf miler. Those types don't really have a whole lot of stamina. So while he's arguably outrun his pedigree already to give Essential Quality a scare in the Bluegrass last time, I wonder if he's the kind of horse you really want stretching out to 1.25 miles in the Kentucky Derby. I think he's got a lot of ability. I'm a fan of him. I just think this might not be the right spot to take Highly Motivated. I am more interested in another horse coming out of a prep race loss, and that is the number 8 Medina Spirit, who lost to Rock Your World, who I already talked about in the Santa Anita Derby last time. And he's coming off a couple of losses because he was also second best 2 back in the San Felipe, but going all the way 3 back to his race in late January, the Robert B. Lewis, when he won that Grade 3 event going 1 mile and 16th at Santa Anita. As we take a look at the replay of that race, I was really impressed with Medina Spirit's performance this day because he was setting a pretty fast pace. When we throw up the PPs again, you can see those red color-coded pace figures in the Timeform US PPs, and all of the horses that were on that pace faded away and finished far back at the end. He took a couple challenges from closers, one of whom was Hot Rod Charlie, and he turned back all those challenges in the stretch to gamely fend them off and win by a head. I was really impressed by that effort from Medina Spirit, and even though he's coming in off a couple of losses, he is arguably the most consistent horse from a speed figure standpoint coming into this race, having achieved numbers between 114 and 118 in his last 4 starts. You don't have that many horses that have run numbers of 113 and above coming into this race 4 times. So I think Medina Spirit has proven that he belongs here. I think the question that a lot of people have is whether he can take that step forward and assert his supremacy over some horses that have beaten him already. Well, Medina Spirit strikes me as one that is a grinder. I think he's going to handle the mile and a quarter distance. He's going out for Bob Baffert, who's always dangerous in these Triple Crown races. And also, I wonder if they're going to get really aggressive with him, kind of like they did in that Robert B. Lewis win, because he ran his best race when they sent him to the front end. And given that he's drawn inside of his main pace rival, Rock Your World, I could see Baffert and Velasquez setting this horse to the lead. And I think that might be the best chance for Medina Spirit to be successful. He's 15 to 1 on the morning line. I'm not sure we're going to get that price for a Bob Baffert trained runner in the Kentucky Derby, but anything in the double-digit odd range, 10 to 1 or above, I think would be value on Medina Spirit. Some other horses that could attract some attention here are the number 7, Mandaloon. Like Hot Rod Charlie, he's coming out of the Fairgrounds route to the Kentucky Derby, but he was no match for Hot Rod Charlie when they faced off last time in the Louisiana Derby. He was the beaten favorite in that race, went off at 6-5 off his victory 2-back in the Risen Star, and he was just a big disappointment. So what happened in that last race? Frankly, I'm not really sure, because the performance was just a real drop-off from what he showed 2-back. At the end of the day, Mandaloon, his best speed figure is just a 111. That's not good enough, kind of like Nona Agenda, the same top number, and he's not even coming off a good race like Nona Agenda is. So I have real questions about Mandaloon. Also, his training coming into this race, he's garnered some attention because he's been really headstrong and aggressive in the morning, but I'm not sure that's actually a good thing moving into the Kentucky Derby, where he's going to have to rate to be successful. So I'm a little against Mandaloon in this race. He'll be a middling price, about 15 to 1, which is where he's at on the morning line. Another horse coming out of the Fairgrounds route to the Derby is the number 10 Midnight Bourbon, one of 2 Steve Asmussen runners in this race. He was second to Hot Rod Charlie last time, was third to Mandaloon 2-back, so he's been knocking on the door in these Fairgrounds races. Don't think it's going to have a big problem with the added distance as a son of Tiz now, with some stamina pedigree on the dam side. Just kind of like Medina Spirit, he hasn't really stepped forward throughout his 3-year-old season, and I think Medina Spirit has more upside than he does, actually, and it's run some faster speed figures. So while I view those as similar horses, I don't know if I view Midnight Bourbon as a win candidate in this race, but he's been right there in a lot of the preps, and if he runs a similar type of race and holds his form in this Kentucky Derby, he could get a piece of this. So I think Midnight Bourbon is one that you might want to use underneath at a price. Another horse that you could say the same thing about is the number 6, Obesos, who again comes out of the Louisiana Derby. He was third in this race behind Hot Rod Charlie and Midnight Bourbon. The difference, though, with Obesos is he's a deep closer, and he's going to have to negotiate a lot of traffic in this 20-horse field to be successful. They might have placed him a bit too close to the pace 2-back in the Risen Star when he didn't have much finish, going 1 mile and 1/8. He finished much better last time, going 1 mile and 3/16 in the Louisiana Derby, but they took him to the back of the pack and made one run. I'm not sure that running style is going to be as successful in this large field, so I prefer Midnight Bourbon to Obesos if they're similar prices coming out of that Louisiana Derby. Few more prep races to wrap up and some contenders coming out of those that I want to talk about, including a couple of horses coming out of the Wood Memorial. One of those is the number 11 Dynamic one of 2 Todd Pletcher runners coming out of that race. He was second in the Wood to Bourbonic, but arguably ran the best race because you see those red color-coded TimeformUS pace figures, and Dynamic one made the first move to take over in the stretch of that race before Bourbonic blew by him in the very late stages. Dynamic one has a stamina-laden pedigree. He seems to be improving, but like some other horses in this race, he just hasn't run a speed figure that says he's good enough to win the Derby. So maybe he's one you want to look for if he runs well here in the Belmont Stakes down the line, because Todd Pletcher really seems to have that Derby also ran to Belmont move nailed down at this point, but I'm not viewing him as a win candidate in this Kentucky Derby. Bourbonic, the number 20 in this race, is also coming out of that Wood, and let's take a look at the Wood Memorial since he was the winner of that race. He made that big late run under Kendrick Carmouche to just get up to beat that stablemate Dynamic one. Really, this was a race, the Wood, where the last move turned out to be the best move. Seemed like a lot of horses didn't get the distance in this spot. The race just kind of fell apart at the end. So a bit, I thought it fell into Bourbonic's lap. But look, he's improving at the right time, and you never want to ignore a horse that's in good form. I just feel like Bourbonic could take another step forward and perhaps be 6th or 7th in this race. I don't really view him as a win or even trifecta candidate in this Kentucky Derby. Couple other horses to mention. One is Superstock, who's coming out of the Arkansas Derby. The Arkansas Derby typically is one of the major preps for this race, but this year felt like it was a weaker race than usual. Let's take a look at Superstock winning it. I thought he got an absolutely perfect trip. The two horses on the lead coming into the stretch, Caddo River and Concert Tour, it just seemed like both of them didn't quite get the mile and eighth distance, and Superstock did. He was staying on well at the end of this race. Don't worry about stamina with this horse. It's just his top speed figure of 114. It's a cut below some of the others, and he earned that best number last time out with an absolutely perfect trip, stalking that fast pace. So I wanted some others coming out of different races, just thought there were stronger preps than the Arkansas Derby this year. I would say the same thing about the Grade 3 Lexington at Keeneland. The winner of that race is the number 16 in here, King Fury for Ken McPeak. He was making his 3-year-old debut in the Lexington, so he's just got one prep under his belt. That's typically not enough to be successful in the Kentucky Derby. We'll take a look at King Fury coming to the stretch of that Lexington, and kind of like Superstock, he got a perfect trip to win this race. The early pace is as fast as you'll see in a dirt route. They were sprinting on the front end, and King Fury was second to last in the early going. Actually, the two horses that were at the back of the pack in the early part of this Lexington are the first two across the wire, him and Unbridled Honor. They passed the entire field to be first and second here. So I feel like it was really a product of circumstances that King Fury was successful last time. And to me, he's not really a major contender in this Kentucky Derby. So talked about a lot of the contenders in this preview. Let's sort it all out by throwing up my top picks for this race. I landed on the number 8, Medina Spirit. To me, he's just going to offer the best value of all of the horses that I think can win this race. He's going out for the dangerous Bob Baffert barn. I've been a fan of this horse throughout the entire prep season, and I think he's going to come up with a good effort on Saturday. We'll see if it's good enough to beat the favorite Essential Quality, who I did put fourth here. I have some concerns about him getting the distance and just about him being an underlaid price, so I wanted to play against him a little bit, and I slotted in the number 9, Hot Rod Charlie, and the number 15, Rock Your World, that Santana Derby winner, ahead of Essential Quality. So 8, 9, 15, 14 is my superfecta in the Kentucky Derby on Saturday at Churchill Downs.